For months now, U.S. Navy warships have faced a wave of mysterious threats at sea, from fast and moving drones to identified missiles streaking across radar screens. What was once rare is now routine. Destroyers have shot down incoming projectiles. Carriers have gone to full alert. Entire strike groups have been forced to react within seconds. And yet, no one knows who will try next. Today, it starts like any other patrol. A calm sea, a slow sunrise, and a fully armed U.S. Navy carrier strike group cruising through international waters. Routine. But lately, routine doesn't mean safe. In recent months, Navy destroyers like the USS Carney and Laloon have intercepted dozens of inbound threats in the Red Sea. The Red Sea has quietly become one of the most dangerous bodies of waters on the planet, where the threats don't announce themselves, they just appear. Drones, anti-jan ship missiles, unknown objects moving fast and low. One destroyer even shot down sea drones in a single night. And this morning, it feels familiar. On the radar, a blip appears, small, fast, and not responding to identification requests. Within seconds, more contacts show up. Multiple close jan range, low altitude. Then the call goes out for general quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Here we go. Inside the Combat Information Center, the mood flips, calm disappears. Boots pound the steel decks, radios explode with orders. The crew doesn't need to guess what is happening. They've trained for it, rehearsed it, lived it, because when you're sailing in hostile waters with a multi-10 billion-dollar carrier in your wake, you don't get to wait, you act. And the question becomes, what happens when someone dares to strike a fully armed U.S. fleet at sea? The location, somewhere between the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Aden, a narrow, volatile stretch of ocean where oil tankers, warships, and shadowy actors all compete for the same space, and sometimes for control. The U.S. Navy calls it high-density threat environment. This morning, a full carrier strike group is underway. At the center sails a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, a Leon-ton floating fortress, loaded with fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, and nearly Wu-10 personnel. Escorting her, two Arleigh B. Key-class destroyers, and a Teiser-Roga-class cruiser, each packed with missiles, radar arrays, and electronic warfare systems. Out ahead, a supply ship cuts through the water, a lifeline of fuel and ammo that keeps the group moving like a mobile city. Together, they are one coordinated weapons system, one floating ecosystem designed not to just fight but to endure. And out here, they need to because this region has changed. The threats have evolved from distant radar pings to swarms of autonomous drones, fast attack boats, and low-jan flying missiles masked by terrain or sea clutter. Especially in the Red Sea, where strike groups now operate under constant pressure, reacting to constant reports that once would have been dismissed as noise. That is why the Navy doesn't wait anymore. High above the group, an A-FA-D Hawkeye orbits in wide loops. This aircraft is the fleet's flying radar dish. It tracks hundreds of targets simultaneously and relays critical data to ships and aircraft in real time. It is the Navy's eyes in the sky. At an even higher altitude, an MQCC Triton drone maintains a silent vigil, flying at Wu-10 It sweeps for electronic emissions and thermal signatures. It can detect the faint heat trail of a missile launch or the weak radio pulse of a ground controller hidden miles inland. Beneath the surface, a fast attack submarine shadows the formation. Unseen but lethal, ready to respond if the threat comes from under the waves. And then there is the Aegis combat systems, the digital brain on board U.S. destroyers and cruisers. Aegis can identify, track, and prioritize dozens of threats at once, coordinating with other ships to create a seamless shield around the carrier. Need to intercept a low-gen flying cruise missile? ESM handles that. The evolved Sea Sparrow missiles are lightning-quick and deadly accurate. Something higher and faster. That is a job for the SM-Mouse, medium-gen range interceptors that cruise at Mach 10 and home in with deadly radar precision. Too close to intercept with a missile. That is time for the CIWS, or SeaWS. The close-gen and weapon system. A Arshahalmi Vulcan cannon that tracks targets and fires Sus-10 Wubei rounds per minute. It doesn't shoot to disable, it shoots to shred. And in awkward angles or low blind spots where the SeaWS can't aim, that is where the SeaRAM steps in. Essentially, a mini-missile turret that can hunt incoming drones or missiles with surgical precision. Now, none of these systems work alone. Each feeds data into the next. It is called layered defense. And today, every single layer is awake. Back in the CIC, radar operators are glued to their screens. One of them mutters, "That contact's fast. Whoosha knots in climbing. No squawk." Another reply follows quickly. "We've got two more just lit up on thermal. No IFF. No transponder, no civilian route, and no response to hails. Under normal conditions, a single unknown object would be monitored, shadowed, and logged. But this isn't normal. In recent months, the Navy has encountered fast-moving threats that didn't wait to be identified. They just attacked. One incident saw a destroyer forced to fire a dozen interceptors in a single night. Another drone passed within 1,000 yards of a supply ship before being blown out of the sky by a CIWS burst. No warning, no claim, no recovery. So when three unknowns appear on the radar at once, closing fast from different vectors, it doesn't feel like a false alarm. It feels like the first move in something bigger. And from here, the rules of engagement are clear. If it doesn't identify itself and it gets too close, it gets intercepted. Because in this part of the world, the difference between peace and a fireball is about US econs. Contact update. 3 fast-moving objects now confirmed airborne, altitude Wushiyunchir, speed increasing. The warning drops into the CC like a steel anchor. No one blinks. No one asks what to do. They've trained for this exact moment, Yalinin times. The USS Jackson, one of the destroyers on the carrier's starboard side, snaps to Condition 1. The Aegis combat system confirms the threat vectors. CI officers relay data to the carrier and the cruiser. Within seconds, the entire strike group is synced into one coordinated kill web. The foul CIWS on the Jackson's deck spins to life. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't wait for approval. It tracks and then weapons free. CIWS engage. The sound is like someone ripping steel apart at high speed. The spray of tungsten shells tears through the air. The drone disintegrates in a cloud of fire and splinters, shredded before it gets within Babema. From the first radar contact to the final explosion, Semfinjon Utes Sishitsimaus econs. The crew exhales, but just for a moment on the destroyer USS McCamel. Alarms still blare. Shrapnel from drone Sen-S truck her aft superstructure. Nothing major, no casualties. But when damage control teams inspect it, they find something disturbing. Not parts from a commercial drone, not hobbyist tech, but something custom. The fragments are carbon reinforced, precision machined, no serial numbers, no identifiers. It is not the debris that unsettles the crew, it is what it implies. This wasn't built in a garage. Someone engineered these drones to slip past layers of defense using low-gen flight carrier, radar shadowing, and multi-axis timing. The textbook probe attack not meant to destroy but to observe, measure, and learn. Back inside the CIC, radar logs are rerun. Operators are studying the timing, the angles, the evasive behavior. Each drone approached from a blind spot. Each pushed a different system. One aimed for SeaWS, one aimed to draw SMR fire, and one went straight for Cram's covered zone. Someone designed this like a weapons test, and it nearly worked. If the Hawkeye hadn't picked them up early, if a single operator missed their window, even if one missile hadn't fired properly, the last drone might have reached the carrier's hull. And if that happened, it wouldn't be damage control. It would be global headlines. The US Navy just avoided a disaster, but more importantly, someone just showed their hand. And now the question shifts. Was this a one-off test, or the opening move in something bigger? Whatever the answer is, the Navy now knows one thing for sure. They were being watched. And if the next attack comes, it won't be 3 drones. It'll be our shoe. There is no victory speech, no celebration, just silence and focus. Because when you sail with the US Navy Carrier Strike Group, you don't retaliate out of emotion, you move with precision. Inside the CIC, the energy shifts. No shouting, no panic, just fast, clean data moving between consoles. The order comes down, not for a strike, but for a reposition. All units execute wedge maneuver. Carrier offset Shudu port. Escorts extend formation. To anyone watching from afar, it looks like a minor course correction. But within the strike group, it is a strategic realignment. The radar net expands. Overlapping coverage is tightened. Each escort ship repositions to cover new quadrants. Above them, the USS D Hawkeye maintains its orbit, eyes on everything. Then the silent work begins. ISR protocols activate. ISR stands for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The invisible web the Navy casts over every operation. Within minutes, satellites are retasked to sweep the region. PBA Poseidon aircraft move in to overwatch lanes. MQCC Triton drones climb to Wuan Wutsenyunchir, scanning the coastline for heat signatures, EM bursts, or command lakes. They're not launching missiles, they're hunting for patterns. Below the surface, a Virginia-class submarine continues shadowing the group, unseen, unheard. But if the threat comes from underwater, it won't stay hidden for long. Back aboard the carrier, electronic warfare officers begin scanning the full spectrum. Not to jam, not to deceive, but to listen. Radio sweeps, data spikes, signal fingerprints. They're looking for the launch signature, something that reveals where the drones came from or who was watching. The Navy doesn't always fire back, but that doesn't mean it does nothing, because sometimes the most powerful response is visibility. Every nation in the region now knows the carrier strike group has eyes everywhere. Submarines, drones, airborne radar, Aegis-armed destroyers, and full command of the spectrum. That is called strategic presence, and it is just as lethal as a missile. In Washington, briefings begin behind closed doors. No press release, no soundbite, just encrypted updates and quiet calls to allies. Back-channel messages ripple through defense networks. Allies activate their own surveillance. Some reposition ships to adjacent corridors. A few alert their air defense grids just in case. To the public, it seems like nothing happened. The United States doesn't chase ghosts. It waits, watches, and prepares. Because retaliation isn't the only way to project power. Sometimes you hold fire so that the next attacker sees how calm you stayed. In the following hours, a broader ISR net unfolds. Patrol zones extend. Flight decks rotate crews for round-the-edge and clock coverage. Even supply ships begin drone surveillance. And deep in the Combat Information Center, a single update appears on the screen. Threat vectors remapped. Protocol sustained readiness. No further contact. The adrenaline fades, but the posture doesn't. No one's standing down because the Navy knows better. This wasn't just an attack, it was a test. And the only correct response to a test like that, stay ready, stay seen. Stay silent until it is time not to be. The threat is gone, the skies are clear. But the tension's still thick, because this wasn't just about 3 drones. It was about what comes next. What if just one of those drones had made it through? What if the Hawkeye hadn't been overhead? What if the Cram hadn't tracked it fast enough? What if even one decision, just one, was made 2 seconds too late? That is why the U.S. Navy trains relentlessly. Not monthly, not when headlines break. Every day, every shift, every sea. Because even with layered defenses like Aegis, SM-Laos, CRAMS, and CIWS, the truth remains warships are vulnerable. Not because they're weak, but because modern threats are designed to bypass strength. Low, fast, smart, swarm, JAN-based ghost signals. One missed blip and the outcome changes entirely. And that is exactly what today proved. Readiness isn't a slogan, it is survival. This incident, like others before it, will now be analyzed in tactical reviews, rebuilt in simulation scenarios, and baked into training protocols across the fleet. Up in orbit, satellites continue to track the region. Below the waves, submarines remain unseen. And far out on the horizon, other navies are watching closely. They're asking the same question. Will the U.S. keep its edge? But if today proved anything, it is this. The edge never left, because calm isn't luck. It is doctrine. It is engineering. It is discipline. And while the sea may look peaceful again, everyone on board knows better. There is always something below the surface. So now we ask you, what would have happened if one drone made it through? You think the U.S. Navy's defense net is strong enough for a real swarm? Or are modern threats evolving too fast for even the best crews to keep up? Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us this. Which would be harder to defend against? A drone swarm, a stealth submarine, or a floating sea mine? We read every reply. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more real Navy incidents turned into cinematic stories. And hey, if you want to go a step further and support this channel directly, join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and help us bring more true maritime stories to the surface. Click join on our channel page and get on board. Thanks for watching.